So, welcome. We've had a really nice lunch. I want to say thanks to Cecile Chasson.
It was more than a nice lunch.
It was really good, wasn't it? It was really good. So Cecile Chasson prepared that, and I think we should all say thank you because
Oh,
it was
yeah,
great.
for sure.
Excellent.
So today we're here to talk about the way the music scene used to be in this area back in the day. Maybe a scene that people are not familiar with, stories that people don't know, maybe inside scoop that they'd like to know. Before we begin, I wonder if we could just take a couple of minutes and maybe you guys could introduce yourselves, Robert.
Hi, my name is Robert Bouchard.
Okay.
Is that all you want me to say, or you want me to say something else?
Do you feel like you need to say anything more?
What do you do, Rob?
Good one.
Cheers for the Leafs.
My life history's too long. I've done too many things in my life
All right,
to
we
get
can't.
into detail.
Yeah, it'd be unfair to sum it up in 2 seconds.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I'll be taking up everybody else's spot too.
Well, there you go.
My name's Jerry Boudreau.
Okay.
I'm like Robert.
You're like Robert. He'll come out in the course of the
He'll come
conversation. Okay.
My name's Kenny Petitpas.
Kenny?
I'm David Sell, the head import of St. Peter's personally.
You had to think about that for a second, didn't you?
My name?
Yeah.
Okay. They, like there's people still refer to me as Harnish.
Oh,
yeah.
Your kids are artists. That's like, yeah, that's my grandfather, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So, maybe we'll just kick it off with a question. I mean, what would you like people to know about the way music used to be?
Who's going first? Who's on first?
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, things have changed so much, especially in small areas. I mean, back in the day, when I was starting to do music, I was, 13 years old at that time. And a friend of mine taught me how to play 3 chords on the guitar, and I just picked it up from that point on. Robert Bouchard was his name.
Right.
We used to call him Pepe,
Mhm.
which is another story, but anyway, it doesn't have the musical edge to it, so we'll just leave it.
Was he a musician himself?
Well, yeah, his brother Donald had taught him to play guitar. Donald was very smart in electronics, and he built a guitar amplifier.
Hmm.
And of course, he hooked up a guitar to it, and my buddy Conrad got interested in that, so he started to pick up the guitar and learn a few chords. And him and I were best friends, so he came down to my house, and we started teaching me a few chords. And that's really how I got started. I mean, before that, I used to sing in church, in school. When I was 5, 6 years old, and I wasn't asked to sing. I was told, you're going to sing, and I did, you know. Because it's something that always came natural to me, and I was always good at it. You know, I never had a problem with it. And anyways, where was I?
Talking about music back in the
Yeah, things have, I don't know, things have taken a turn, but it's not a good turn musically, not at all. It's, music scene now is pretty much, it seems like it's almost finished.
Around
Fair to
here, you
say.
mean?
Yeah, around here, yeah, and probably in a lot of small communities too, it's still going, but I find here that, I mean, years ago, the Knights Columbus Hall, the
Oh,
Discos Hall,
70s, 80s. and
the
stuff.
old halls. Saturday nights you
Yes.
play a dance there,
Right.
and the people were lined up on the ramp outside waiting to get in.
Yeah.
You know,
And do you remember as well?
When I first, I was about 9 years old. And in the St. Joseph's Parish Hall in Boudreau, they used to have, Sundays was a ritual. Sunday morning, you went to Mass. Sunday night, you went to the variety show. That was every week. And variety shows were consisted of this gentleman right here, Father Moverket with the MC, Lord Burno, bass player, Rudolph Boudreau played drums,
Jerry Landry.
Jerry Landy played the piano, Eddie on the fiddle, Roger Murray was your lead guitar player.
Yeah. Leon used to play too, Leon.
Leon Dennis, Francis, and Richard would also play gigs in it. And when this guy would step up on stage, no word of lie, you could hear a pin drop.
Huh.
And everybody was in awe. And he could hold the audience in the palm of their hand as long as he was in the mic. And I remember at 9, 10 years old, I'd look and I'd say, wow, I wish I could do something like that when I grew up, right? And I would go home. Now, if you can mentally picture this, a 9-year-old boy, I probably weighed 40 pounds. My brother had a Saturn guitar that he had bought. and it was a jumbo body, they called it back then. I didn't have a strap, so I tied a piece of rope to it. I would lock myself in the bedroom, and I didn't know any chords. I would just bang on it and sing. And at that point in time, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Grand Ole Opry, and I was Merle Haggard / Robert Bouchard. Okay, and I would just go right at her.
Wow.
And the crowd was hollering, they were throwing bouquets at me, until I came out of my coma and realized that my sister was throwing shoes.
Wicked
And,
imagination.
yeah, it was my sister throwing shoes at the door, telling me to shut up, and they were trying to tell you, right? But like they say in New York, the show must go on.
Yeah.
So I get up, but my mom, I don't know if you remember my mom, Mary Boudreau, we used to call her Mary Matt.
Yes.
She was her biggest fan.
Oh,
She had
wow.
the Irish side of Robert Bouchard, the Robert was the other, and that's what she played all the time. And when my sister would put pressure on me and mom would come out, I'd say, well, mom, do you want me to be like Robert Bouchard or not? And she'd tell my sister to go downstairs instead. And that was, but he was one of my biggest influences. That, because back then, the variety shows were so awesome, and the crowds would come every week. It was always packed. The entire hall was packed, they were lined up on the sides.
Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. That was the place to be for concerts.
It was awesome. It was some of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It was really
Thank you
good.
for that, by the
You're
way.
welcome, buddy.
What about you, Kenny? How did you get into?
When I started, like, back in high school, I started playing drums, and,
And your mom
Yeah.
kicked you out?
no, that was not a good thing to be playing that at home, but they put up with it, I guess, for a while. And then, when we were in high school, we started, a couple guys from the Stair Shack. I don't know if you remember Larry, it was Larry Boudreau and his brother Kenny.
Yes.
They'd only be, they'd been gone a way long time. So we were only around 17 or 18 at the time, or not even, they were in high school anyway. So we used to practice in the West Ayrshire Church. And I used to put the drums up on the altar for a riser. And the old priest would come in and shake his head and walk away. We're banging away in there. So we finally got a gig to play at, we were going to play at the West Ayrshire Hall. We only had, I don't know how many practices. And we got set up in there, we had one problem. We had no PA system. So they decided they were going to use PA system in the hall. They call it bingo, I guess. Which, probably Radio Shack, you know, a little amp with speakers. And we're sitting there, I was sitting there waiting, and they trying to get it going. They probably blew it apart, I don't know. And I'll never forget, you and Giselle were there. That day you came in, and you were all decked out for playing and standing there. And anyway, this went on for I don't know how long, and we never got the PA going. Everybody kind of trickled away where we were supposed to play there, and we found ourselves there with the crowd. There was still some people there. So we probably only knew about 4 songs, so we just kept playing the 4 songs over again. No PA. Oh, it was just a crazy time. And,
Yeah, it's chaotic.
well, anyway, that we never did anything with it after that. But then after I got out of school, I got into other bands and played pretty much right through the 70s, like 80s and that. Different. A lot with Huey's group. We had different groups over the years.
Yeah, everybody mixed.
What about you?
As a kid, I was lucky in the fact that my mother's family all sang in the United Church. My father's family all played guitars. My mother listened to country and Bing Crosby, of course. And my father was in the Carpenters Union, and people would come to the house to pay their dues from time to time. And many times his guitar came out. That's the only time my father played, if he was having a few, or when someone showed up. There was a guy from Monastery, I forget his name. He used to come down. My mother would be like, "Can you get him out of here? Like, we have to have supper." Like he'd just keep playing and playing and playing. But my dad showed me 3 or 4 chords. He bought me this Sears catalog guitar when I was 6 or 7. And he used to sing Tom T. Hall, Clayton Delaney, Ravish and Ruby, and all those songs, and of course Hank Williams. And so got me this guitar, and I remember like the action on it.
You had to stand on
Which
the
is
strings.
how far the strings are from the fret. Beautiful looking guitar. It was a Kent. And it's like he would hold a big carpenter hands on it, and he would hold my little fingers against until you could see the red starting to gush out of the end. And it's like, you know, it worked. I mean, he wanted me to build things he wanted, so I carried his hammer. He wanted me to play hockey. He played hockey, and he wanted me to play guitar. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna do all these things. And he died when I was 10, and I never touched it again until I was 16, and I haven't put it down since.
Yeah.
But what the four of you are taught, I mean, implicit in everything that you said is that there was a lively scene of people a lot of people who played music. And a lot of people, privately,
Publicly,
at,
privately, variety shows, like you say.
at the halls, and you knew who people were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Our first band that I ever played in was with Nick, his brother Francis and Richard. Anthony Fortune was on drum. Wayne Boudreau played bass for us. And back in the day, we practiced. And we did a lot of stuff back then. It was, of course, we were teenagers, so it was like Creedence, Clearwater Revival, the Beach Boys, the Beatles, things like that.
All cover stuff.
All cover stuff. And it was just at the time when Little Ants Hall, back then it was a school, had burnt down. I don't know if you guys remember that.
No.
And it was just a flat basement. They put a roof on it and they shingled it over. And they were having card plays and bingos. And Big Tony Sampson, used to run the hall, or the basement hall, I guess you call it. And they decided to do teenage dances. And we got our first gig. And we were happy, hey guys, we're moving somewhere. So somewhere along the way, after a bunch of practice, we didn't have a name. Somebody said, well, what are we going to call the band? And out of the blue, somebody hollered, the Maniacs. Which we should have given a little more thought, right? Really? The Maniacs? Back by popular demand, the Maniacs.
Beatles.
Anyway, there were 6 of us, and you were saying what PA systems. Back then, they had Fender amps, and the PA system were Trainer.
Yep.
You probably recognize the Trainer
Oh,
amps.
yeah.
The columns were bigger than us and heavier than us. It would take 3 of us to lift them, okay? And we'd haul our gear to Little Ants, 6 of us, and we would play for $25 for the night from 9 to 5. Now, we didn't take home $25, okay? Because if you bought a pop or a chip or a bar, it came off your pay. Yeah. And then we'd have to divide between the 6 of us. Well, who is it that had a pop and a chip? Because I'm not paying for the pop and the chip. So we get in these arguments about, well, it wasn't me, I never had it, right? And then
There goes
so
the
it's
band.
usually one of the Francis or Richard or one of the, well, it's coming off your plate, right?
Pretty bad, right?
Yeah, well, that was it, but it wasn't about the money, it was about the love of it. We loved it so much. And in the summertime, we practiced outside at Nick's place, and you could hear us at Albany Point from Boudreau. And we had more fans before we even played than when we got there, and the halls were always packed. I mean, it was $1 or something to come in, right? And teenagers would come from all over the place.
Wow.
And it was awesome.
But it was always, like you say, it was always about the music.
It was always about the music. Nobody cared about the money. We didn't care about the money, we just wanted to play. And the power, and I'm sure the power you must have felt over the years, when you do something and you do it right, and the people cheer you on, and you have this, I know there's just this rush that comes over you that's, wow, you know, we're doing this.
That's the reason.
We're the ones that we're doing it.
And had a lot of support, it sounds
Yes.
like, from the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
That
It was.
they were there, they'd come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
I remember at home in St. Peter's, like, though they weren't much older than me, one of my brother's classmates, Danny Doron, and his brother Steve, and another brother, their father had just become the bank manager in St. Peter's, so they moved down. And Danny's one of the best musicians, period, anywhere, still is. And it's like, so I had them on like 7 houses over the road from me on the north side, and then my friends, the Webbs and Mortis, Donnie Webb and Paul.
I went to school with Donnie, I knew.
Donnie and the younger brother Wayne is one of the best musicians walking.
They did very well.
They did really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Donnie
yeah,
is battling cancer, and he's still playing, and he does it for like it's like we never, yeah, they want to be April Wine. They called their band April Wine, and they learned every April Wine song, and they
And they were good at it, yeah.
you go home and listen to your April Wine record and go, I like the way Donnie sang that, and when he brought out the talk box,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So I had guys 5 years, 4 years, 3 years older than me, at 16, 15, 16, 17 years old, that it's like, I want to be like them. Like, and it wasn't about, you never thought, I wonder how much money they make to play.
No.
No, that.
Some of these guys had 7-piece bands, so they weren't making a lot of money. But
Yeah.
it was about the social aspect. Like, and that, that goes back, I'm into history, you get into genealogy, and music was always, when these guys, pioneers, came to these parts, they had their faith, they had their families, and if one of them played a fiddle or something, that brought them all together for another. You had the faith brought them together, the family forced them together, and then the music was the icing on top that added a little bit of.
Well, do you guys remember older relatives playing music?
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about your dad, but I mean,
His
grandparents.
Not my family.
In my family, I was the only person that played.
Oh, is that
Funny,
right?
funny with that, like you never,
Huh.
just had an interest.
Like I said, I think maybe because, like, my brothers and dad were fishermen, and that's what they did most of their lives, and they didn't, I sort of grew up at a time where I got to see guys like this gentleman here playing, and it was just, I was in awe. I wanted to do this so
Right.
badly, and it pushed me into a time that, okay, I gotta do it, I gotta find a way to do this.
Right.
And then in time, I got to be, thank God, with the right people like Nick and people that were very talented that I picked up from them.
That's usually how that works,
Yeah, and then
you feed.
you sort of go on your own, you feed off of everybody, right?
Yeah.
And
It's just something like you either like it or you don't. Like,
Yeah.
like some people just have no interest and other people just.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna do anything with music, you gotta love it, you
Yeah.
can't just like it.
no, it's gotta be
That's
all
a big difference.
It's all about the music.
But you were mentioning, anybody else in the family, we had an old pump organ in the living room, the one with the pedals and all the keys, all this stuff. And every once in a while, I remember Mom used to play it. She wasn't really good at it, but she was good enough, she could make you listen, And she was the only one that I can remember, had ever displayed any kind of music when I was a kid. Of course, like I say, I could always sing, it always came easy for me. But all my family, when we'd get together, they could all sing, and we used to sing harmony together. My brother Wilfred and I, we had a thing going, we had a duo going for maybe a year and a half or 2 years. We used to sing nothing but Irish
I
music.
believe he played banjo or something.
He did,
Yeah, I remember
yeah.
him,
And we used to sing all Irish music, because my sister Celine, when she moved away to Halifax, she'd come home sometimes on the weekends, and she'd bring home Clancy Brother albums. And she'd rant and rave about them, and that she had saw them live, and how good they were. And we just played that on the little phonograph records, and we picked up every song that we could. And we sang stuff like Good Ship Calabar, and Irish Rover, and Courtin' in the Kitchen, and some of that stuff is on my first
Very
album.
good record.
Yeah, and we loved that stuff. And Conrad could play too, my older brother Conrad, he played. And Celine could always sing. And my sister Marie, she could sing too. But I'm the only one who ever took it seriously. My brother Wilfred, after a year and a half, when people used to dance sometimes close to the stage, and they'd hit the mic stand, and it would hit him in the mouth. And one night he come home and he said, I had enough of this. Yeah, he said, I can't do this no more. He said, I'm getting hit in the face every time people get up and dance. He said, I don't want to do this no more. I hate it. So he really didn't like it from the start, but he did it because I kind of pushed him into it. He liked the singing part, but sitting in the living room.
Yeah.
He didn't like the crowd atmosphere. And of course, there's a bit of ham in every musician. You like the crowds and you feed off them.
It's the crowd that gets you going.
Yeah, if you don't feed off the crowd, you might not be there.
That's right.
And anyway, that's how it all began for me.
Well, I quit playing the bars in Halifax from getting hit in the face. I lost 2 teeth in the front
See,
of my
there you
head
go. One example.
from at the old Triangle, from them not giving a crap about the band.
This is an occupational
They
hazard.
would
never
dance
thought
right
of.
up at the edge of the stage there,
Yep.
and they'd bump the monitor. And my monitor was right on top of my mic stand.
Yeah.
And the owners would look at you and say, well, back up more. I said, there's 4 of us.
Yeah.
It's not you and Kevin together like
Build a bigger
two guys
stage.
way off the stage. There's 4 of
There's
us.
never a big enough stage.
No.
Well,
When you go play a place
the
that,
split
some of the
crow.
halls,
you had a railing between you and like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like,
Were there other occupational hazards that we
Yeah.
should know about?
There was one.
Well,
that
Oh,
we-
yeah,
You're
those,
both.
I remember this, but they're still a favorite. Dick and I still use it off and on. At the end of the night, some guy comes in and he's 3 sheets to the wind, and he hollers out, "Play something good before you leave. Play us a good one before you leave." Yeah.
Like, what else you're trying to do all night, right?
Oh, then you appreciate what we've done already.
No, I mean, there's sometimes you'll get places way back then, well,
Yeah.
I guess probably today too, where
it's
fights
so-
would break out and.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, I know one night we were playing somewhere and this guy was making a racket and he jumped up on the stage. Hector Martel was playing with us there.
Oh,
Sitting
yeah.
on the sides of Hector,
Yeah.
grabs the guy and he fires the ball off the stage and then the other guy I was playing with, he said, "Stop, let's stop." I said, "No, let's keep
No,
going
don't
because
stop.
if you stop, it's gonna draw everybody's attention."
Yeah.
So we kept playing and he had to push the guy off the stage. And the cops were there and grabbed the guy, took the guy away and that was it, like, you know. But no one, it never caused anything more after that, but.
We played one night
Keep
in
going.
Pomcat for, was a New Year's ball. And it was great dance. Everything went A1. You couldn't ask for anything better. The crowd was great. We put on a good performance. It was all great. Sang the last waltz. And we're starting to pick up the gear. And of course, you could see across the hall. It was something like the hall in Boudreau. It was fairly big. And on the back where they had tables set up, one guy got up and he was talking to somebody. He had a drink in his hand. And the other fella was trying to come out with his wife. His chair was in the way, okay? And so, Buddy, we were just watching. It just happened so fast. Buddy took his chair and moved it so he could pass by. And then the other fella was finished talking, went to sit down, no chair. The drink went flying and everything went over on somebody else's dress when you talk about a racket.
Then the record starts. Yeah.
4:30 in the morning before we got out of the hall.
Wow.
We were told, stay on the stage, don't move. The cops were coming, everybody started. One woman started, then the other, and then the women were worse than men. And it was like, wow, this is, and we were up on the stage, up high, where we could see everything, right? It was awesome. It was crazy, right? I said, if we get out of here tonight, that's it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
But it was all, like I said, it was a beautiful dance, all over that one little incident that,
yeah.
and it was just an accident. Buddy didn't, I'm sure he didn't mean to do it.
But then you get a great story to tell out.
He just, yeah, it was pretty nuts.
So you were all self-taught or taught by friends?
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned singing in the choir, but formal music instruction was not
No.
a thing. It
No.
sounds like.
It was not a curriculum for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like everything, Weldon Boudreau, him and his daughter, you might
Yeah.
have heard of him. Well, he uses me a lot where he was, because we were neighbors. And he says his inspiration was me when I was playing in the band. My inspiration was this guy when he was playing. So everybody sort of picks up from somebody that they look at and they
You
sort
know,
of idolize and say, man, I want to be like that.
not meaning to interrupt you, but you know, when you do what we do, you don't realize the influence you're having on other people.
No. Well,
You
Merle
really
Haggard.
don't.
I have a T-shirt home with Merle's picture on it and a guitar. And I put the caption on it, I was raised on Merle Haggard. Would Merle Haggard ever even imagine what an influence he had on somebody like you or
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Yeah, all
In this area,
in this
in
area.
a small little
Yeah.
town, I mean, you couldn't even pick it up on the map anywhere, but that's what the power of music is.
Oh, yeah,
But it
definitely.
sounds like it
It's
was
so
the
powerful.
power too of the record player.
Yeah.
That listening to records.
Well, see, like now, like back then, you didn't have YouTube.
No.
You didn't have, you couldn't
Yeah.
just, you know. So you.
Back then,
listen
you
to
could
record-
make money if you wrote the right song, too.
That's right.
Can't do that anymore
That's
here
right.
now.
That's gone too.
Yeah, Joe Walsh said that in one of his interviews. One
Yeah,
of the best guitar players in the world,
Mhm.
and that's what he said. He said,
that's a sad part.
royalties now are a thing of the past.
Mhm.
But the kids learning now can go on there, they can, get instruction, they can get, so
Well, a lot
much,
of
we didn't
good-
have any of that. You had to
Oh, yeah.
listen to what you heard and
Yeah.
you just played it.
It was harder to
You know,
get
it was
into
harder
the
to-
business then than what it is now.
Uh,
But
Now
even
you
then,
can-
that
you
was
can-
an advance in technology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think of a couple of generations before you guys, the musical inspirations would have been largely people in the local area. There
Yeah.
was no radio and there
Yeah.
was no,
They had to pass.
so you
Probably.
would have
Yeah.
to listen to people that you actually knew in the community, right? So the long playing record or the 45 meant you could communicate with people much further away and be inspired by their music
See,
and the
yeah.
radio.
You said, I gotta learn to play that song. You
Yeah.
lead it on,
Yeah,
take
back
out the
up.
line, take it out, hang on, take it out.
That's
and you
exactly
roll.
what it was.
We
That's
all,
what it
yeah,
was,
we all
yeah.
did that, you know, and I mean, there was none of us could read music, none of us.
And the lyrics, you had to write the
All-
lyrics down.
All by ear.
All by ear and by
And,
memory.
and you hope that you wrote the right lyrics.
Yeah.
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 Nowadays you go on there and you get the lyrics of every song, there.
Yeah.
Back then it was like, what's he saying exactly, Gary?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now
He's saying, you gotta make sure,
you
are
can
you,
Google
is
it
that what
now,
he's saying?
like,
For me, like the variety show thing, like I still, as a teenager, like a lot of my friends, it's like, oh, you're playing a variety show with Will Pringle and his, the cane and the harmonica and all this kind of stuff. But you could go talk to Will back, he was a school teacher, he wrote books, he wrote poetry. Like he could talk about his family doing music out the points and Roberta and those places. And it's like, old Jack Adams was the MC. His son Jimmy, who just passed away, Jimmy sang, big voice. Al and Georgie Martin, like two of the best backup musicians around the St. Pete, and they would play together. And then you get the people that came from the outside here. There was always somebody came from the, it was a big thrill. Kiffy Carter would come up from the Gold.
Oh, yeah.
Or Gordon Cody would come up, and, debut his sons or whatever, and show, oh, well, look, we got this here, and it's like, and you could sit there and the people you didn't know, you didn't really know, but you'd be sitting there waiting your turn and just be like, I'm singing Cousin Mary tonight. It's like, I hope I got the words right. I've never played a 12-string on stage before, but there was a 12-string in Cousin Mary.
yeah.
And one of my neighbors, the forestry guy, Lloyd McDonald, they took in boarders. And there was a girl from down St. Espert Way or somewhere, Rita McIntyre. And we used to walk home from school together, and I had my aunt's 12-string Kent guitar. I think my father and her got the guitars at the same time, Port Hawkesbury at the Woolworths.
Stand on the strings on that one.
So she moved to Sydney, so she lent me the Kent for a little while. And it's like, I said to Reed, you should come sing in the variety show. Well, what are you gonna sing? I said, I'm gonna sing Lion Eyes by the Eagles. I got a 12-string here. She goes, I'll come sing on with you. And it's like, by the time, like the ends of my fingers, I'm just like, and an easy song to play, not like 3-4 chords maybe, some half chords,
Yeah.
But it was like, you're sitting there in the old parish church hall up, which is no longer there, the Catholic church up outside St. Peter's, and just like, I'm singing with someone I don't even know her, and you're like 13 years old, and it's like, and then the next day after the show, you get up and go, I did it. And then you go, like someone would come from the outer areas, or someone would be home from Toronto or Halifax or somewhere. One of Roger Stone's uncles, Sonny, Joe, he come home from Halifax, him and his cousin John Dan Stone, and they do country stuff. John Dan sang Lightfoot and still sings it. And they get up and do something together, and it's like, wow. Those are Stones, those are relatives of mine. I can do that.
Right.
The other thing I find too is that even if you go way back in the day of the Hank Williams, Bob Wills, whatever, and all the great artists that come up like Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, George Jones, Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, George Strait, country music seems to have taken a change.
Oh, the music is
The country that you
yeah.
get today, to me, for whatever reason, I can't seem to get into it.
Pop,
It's
Not
not
because
country.
it's not country.
It's not
It's not
country.
country. It's like, I don't know what it is.
And the amazing thing too is that, well, it's not amazing, it's a natural thing that happens to all of us. Merle Haggard's greatest influence was Lefty Frizzell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
And-
who's
and
like
they all had-
Boudreau? Excuse my ignorance.
What would he have sang?
Wings of a Snow White Dove.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
That was
all right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was big in his day.
Very
Mm.
And Haggard said when he was 14, 15, he used to listen to Lefty all the time.
Mm.
And you can hear the influence in Haggard's voice
Yeah.
of Lefty Frizzell, you can hear it.
But, those songs back then, like, they stood out,
Did they ever?
Nowadays, music is like, I listen to what they call the top 10 or whatever it is. It's the number one song, like, I never heard,
But a lot of
Then
it
you-
too is if you look at the artists, like some of the artists like Merle Haggard, George Jones, whatever, these guys would come out with album after album after album after, you know, it wasn't just a one song type thing that made it big and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you didn't hear about them anymore for,
You know,
Six
there were
months
no
down the
one-hit
road.
wonders, those guys.
these guys would write a song on a napkin while they were having a beer at the bar.
So
It was just,
you guys would be
So
the best
gifted.
positioned to explain to me then, something I've always found interesting. So my family roots are in this area, other places in Nova Scotia. When I was a kid, you know, we'd come every summer, of course, we always came home
Yep.
to Nova Scotia. Why has country been such a big influence in this area and in Nova Scotia?
Family.
Probably because of radio.
Radio,
Radio was a
that's-
big influence. That's
absolutely.
pretty much,
But I'm,
that was pretty much the dominating music at that time.
Okay.
When I was small back in the day, when I was listening to Robert and that, we didn't really have a TV at the time. We had this big square radio that would, on Saturday night, it used to be the Grand Ole Opry. And you listened, it always, mom and dad would always have that on, because they loved country music. And that's what you listen to, the old country songs, and
Yeah.
that's what you grew up listening to.
mm-hmm,
I used to come home from school and Mom had this green radio on a shelf on top of the fridge. And the radio was on every day I come home for lunch. And I could hear Hank Williams or Lefty Frizzell
Yeah.
or Roy Acuff or one of those guys.
mm,
And I used to suck that stuff in like a sponge. And I didn't realize at the time that I was doing that.
mm.
And then all of a sudden you got all this stuff going on in your head.
Absolutely.
And then you start singing it and humming it. And the next thing you know, you're a part of it.
Mhm.
That's how it began for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're right, it seems like country is like, you know, everybody plays, you know,
Well,
in this area
here,
is a lot more.
I guess I say here, you know, I mean, and you know, maybe it's just my own lack of familiarity, but you know, like I don't remember country being. I moved around a lot as a kid. My dad worked for phone companies, and we were moved, you know, a lot, and so I don't remember country being as big in places we lived in Ontario or Quebec, for instance. And that also may be a testament, you know, the fact that I'm maybe a little bit younger, say, than you,
Yeah.
Robert. But when we came here for the summer, you could always pick up country on the radio station, you know, in the car and stuff. And I remember as a kid sort of just finding that interesting. And I liked a lot of the music, I liked a lot of the songs and the performers, but I found it culturally different than you know, I knew when we crossed the border into New Brunswick, you started hearing country
Yeah.
music, right?
I find like growing up in St. Peter's, country in St. Peter's proper wasn't, like, we all want to play rock and roll. But, and the predominant thing to me, and it's, I learned this from Newfoundlanders, from guys from Port Peninsula, it had as much to do with the Acadian community. Like you look around here, it's all Acadian. Arishat had English and Irish, and
Yep.
Rocky Bay had your Irish, but eventually you marry with all the French. But around home, Sampsonville, they, like Kiffy Carter and his in-laws, and they had these rehearsed costume shows in the 50s and 60s. You see the old pictures of the shows in Sampsonville.
Yeah.
All of them, they're dressed up like Gordy Landry and all. They're dressed up like they're in Nashville. Whereas, like for me, it was like I want to be April Wine. But the predominant influence of music in the Acadian communities was country. And whether that was religion, whether that was that family side of it, like I didn't, like my father's mother was a Landry from Sampsonville, but as a kid, when he passed, we spent no time. My mother's family lived right across the road, and I essentially became one of the Harnishes. And it's like, as I got older and started learning about the Landrys and the connections to this, it's like you suddenly, but I find there was something, and then I moved away, and all these guys I knew in Toronto, Ozzie Branscombe, the country music store, all the big country music areas he would talk about in New Brunswick, Acadian-based.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Nova Scotia, all like Isle of Dam area, Lower Base, like I say, that whole River Bourgeois, you know, just across the water, a short boat ride over to the Scoos, really, you know, from the river. And it's like, there was that pull to the Acadian
Yeah,
culture.
something about the music
And the
and
music,
lyrics.
but
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting.
you know,
But having played, I played a little bit of rock and I played country.
yeah.
First of all, we started off with Nick and I, now we're more into rock.
Oh, yeah.
And then switched over to country because I love country. But even that being said, I find that even the rock back then, I mean, you were talking like April Wine, CCR, and Beach Boys, the Beatles, it was a better type, more classic type rock than what you get
Well, it's
today.
more
that,
lyrical, right?
yeah, like what you get today, you can't even understand half the lyrics. It's like, what is this? What's it supposed to?
You know, the thing that bothers me the most about it nowadays, as opposed to years ago in the days of Waylon, George, Merle, all these guys, every one of those people had an identity.
Yes.
Hmm.
They had a style to sing, and they had a look that was,
That's right, that's the difference.
everybody,
No,
nobody
everybody's
copied
the same.
everybody else,
No.
everybody was original.
Everything's the same
Wayne
now.
Nelson.
And now you listen to radio today, you
Yeah.
cannot figure out one singer from another because they all sound the same.
Same.
The studios all use the same musicians,
Yeah.
for the same, and everything is like cookie cutter.
Same songwriters.
That's all
It's
it
the
is.
same thing over and over, and it's boring.
You,
It's
like,
just
Nothing
boring.
stands out, exactly, so the same.
And the songs that were written back then, you could relate to, the songs that would happen in everyday life.
They had emotions.
Heartbreak, they had, they
Yeah,
could make you cry, they could make you laugh, they could
Yeah.
make, you know.
yeah.
Now you just, you hear a country music song and it's like,
Mm.
you wanna change the settings, no.
my wife and I watch like the videos stuff on the galaxy and all that sort of stuff. And it's like you repeat yourself every time. You go back to the mid-60s to the early 80s till punk and everything came. When a song came on, whether it was a radio or a video channel, and you didn't, there's no pictures of the bands. But say, I don't know how many people are in the Supertramp, but say School started by Supertramp, the harmonica intro into School. There's no mistaking
That's right.
what that,
Yeah.
what was, I could
You
see
knew
you in
before
the
the
morning
singer
when
even
it goes
sang, you knew.
Yeah.
Pop
Yeah, yeah.
music comes on today, it's like
Yeah.
you say, and it's like you watch, and I have friends that are in Friends of Friends or that play with these big Canadian country guys now. It's rap, pop music,
Yeah.
in
That's
cowboy
right.
hats.
Yeah, it's turning more into a.
Yeah,
There's no story in the song,
No.
no.
there's very little story, God, imagine
And
if
there's no
someone,
emotion.
if someone walked up to Tom T. Hall and said, oh, by the way, you gotta cut, you can't put here, you gotta do this, or Hank, or any of those guys.
Well, I think Alan Jackson was interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and he put out that he was totally disappointed in country
Oh.
music today.
See,
Oh,
real
really?
style.
He didn't
Yeah.
want nothing to do with
That's the
country
money.
music.
Well, he was a big fan of
Business.
George Jones, and
Yeah.
of course, George Jones said the same thing too
Yeah.
when it first started.
Now, and you don't think, so I'll just be adversarial for the fun of it, you don't think that that's just because we're all getting old? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about, the way my grandparents complained about,
Yes.
Yes, it's more likely that's what it
If
is.
Aristophanes wrote in the 5th
Yeah.
century BC as a character in a play,
Right.
complain about his son's taste in music.
Yeah.
So
No,
you don't
I-
think that this is a generational
I
thing?
agree with that.
I agree with that,
I
too,
do.
yeah. The same when the Beatles came out and people were saying, well, who's
Yeah.
gonna listen to that kind of music? I
My
mean,
mother
nobody
thought the
did.
Beatles
Yes.
were shocking.
Yes,
I
mom
know.
too, mom,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody was,
Elvis
what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe it is, the era is changing, generations are changing, it's just.
Well, and
the
I
way it
don't
is,
wanna
I guess.
dismiss, everything that you guys just so eloquently said. I mean, there may be something different about, now, I mean, this is an age where
Yeah.
the mass production of sound, where, it's a much bigger industry
Mm.
than it's ever been.
Yeah, but another
Those make
thing-
differences, right?
Another thing about it too is that years ago, an entertainer could stand on stage and sing and impress people.
Mm.
Nowadays, they got fire and smoke and
That's
God
it.
knows what
They're
else
hang-
is
they're
on
hanging off
stage.
beams. and-
Yeah, it's coming in, entering from ladders and helicopters and
Right,
It's more about the.
It's
the
all
show.
show, glitz, it's
show.
all glitz.
Wrestling.
It's wrestling.
so you need about half the talent that what the stars of yesteryear had to have.
That's right.
These people can't do it just sitting there. You
yeah.
gotta have all these props around them.
Yeah, it's all about the show, not about the
That's
performance.
exactly it, it's all about show.
It's like the George Jones song, who's gonna fill the
Yeah,
Who's
yeah,
gonna,
that's a great,
Who's gonna
that's a
fill the
great
shoes?
song.
right,
No one will ever be able to fill the show.
I think that one of the other things with the two is, all those record companies in that era were run by people that were musicians. They were
Yes.
started by
Yes,
the
Many.
RCA, the biggest country, started by musicians. Record companies now are, could be from Japan, the ownership of, they're just pumping money, oh, this is trendy, let's pump the
And then
money.
the ones that get big, like Johnny Cash, Charlie Pride, they come back and deal with these record companies and buy into them and wanna have a say in how things ran, you know?
Well, it become a matter of investment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's so much now, it's just about, it's about money.
it's all about money.
I mean, you look at all these shows, and it's nice to see, like, I'll never get some of them, I don't watch them, you know, the Masked Singers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, I remember reading something a few years ago, many years ago, one of my favorite writing duo music when I was a kid was Elton John and Bernie Taupin.
That's right.
And it's like,
Yeah.
they got crapped on by everyone, like Bernie Taupin's lyrics don't make sense. Well, he wrote little snippets of his childhood into, you would weave 3 verses to make a whole song. They wouldn't stand on their own as being part of a story. And Elton John talked about, he was doing a concert with the winner of Idol. One of these shows in Los Angeles. And he said, you know, nothing like beautiful voice, no stage presence, no sense of music. He said, we started music because we love music, because we saw the Beatles, we saw the Yardbirds, we saw all these, you know.
There it is, and all that.
And that whole British thing, like that music community was very much like our little communities. It was all about this generation past, and he said, you know, come back and join me when you can walk up on stage and actually sing your song.
That's what's missing today.
Yeah.
So you ever think back, like, so who are some of the musicians from this area that you think perhaps ought to be remembered, but who aren't?
Robert Boudreau.
Robert Bouchard,
Okay.
absolutely.
So tell me
Yeah,
about
what a
Fulbert.
singer. Whew.
Yeah,
Man was a crooner, like he was,
Yeah,
he was better than Sinatra.
yeah.
I've heard say
Sinatra never impressed me.
He came from
Jim
here.
Reeves, he's all wound up into one.
Yeah.
He had a beautiful
Oh,
voice.
he was exciting, and the
he was
nicest
very,
man.
yeah, and he was very particular. Every band, I know Eddie used to tell me a lot of stories about him, but Eddie, the singer,
Yeah.
Eddie Boudreau.
Yeah.
And he would say that everything had to be just precise.
Huh.
There was no such thing as a mistake or an
Yeah.
error. He'd stop the song right then and there and do it again.
So that's a nice example. Why do you think he's not better remembered?
Probably,
There was much exposure back then.
there wasn't that much exposure back
Oh,
then. And I mean, it was so long ago that a lot of the people that did enjoy him so much are probably passed away or
Yeah, and I mean, the only place that Fulbert ever played that I ever saw him, that was at the Hall in
the hall
Pelham.
And that's one of the things, which is a sad thing, because I don't know what's going on with the hall now, but they should go back to that. You know, some of these
Yeah, well,
places should
Playing
Another
music.
whole
try to
Right.
go back to music to the way it was, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's still a lot of talent on this island.
Yeah.
That's obviously by looking at Telile, I mean, there's a lot of young folks here that's got,
Yeah,
you know, great voices and they're into country and.
yeah, and
you know,
other kinds
they
as
should-
well,
They
yeah.
should look at going back and doing some of these shows again.
The thing, like, to me, one of the things we're missing now, and I go back to my mom and her generation, and the last time I saw you play was at one of the kitchen things there in July in St. Peter's.
That would have been at the
A
tavern.
couple of years ago. I don't know, with my leg, I haven't been out much. I don't enjoy trying to hobble up and down those
Yeah,
stairs.
yeah.
But it's one of the few places, and I knew just about unlike most of that kitchen stuff, the audiences that come to the tavern and stuff, they're not from here. They don't drink, like the staff all complain about they drink water and pop. But when you would play, and even more so, like, you know, I remember when my cousin Roger Stone joined McGinty after John Ferguson's death. And it's like they played that same year at Kitchen Fest, and there were like 30 people in the tavern. You and Nick played, I think, on the Saturday night, possibly.
Yeah, that's when George ran it.
Yeah, no, George was dead. This is long. Yeah, this
Oh,
is
this is more
this is
recent.
recently. Yeah, like the last 5-6 years.
Right.
Because I went every year. But when you guys play, and I never get to see you much, like we did a songwriting thing, I'd love to do something like that
Yeah.
again. But it was like every break in the song, like I'm looking and I see 1,000 of my mom sitting in that audience, and after that tradition of, that's what you did, and you showed your respect to the performer.
Yes.
Even though today, most of those performers were probably thinking, would you just stick that till I'm done playing?
And you can still get goosebumps when you get that kind of response
my
from
God.
people too. It's
I'm
amazing.
watching Nick took a solo on something, and I'm looking over and I see Anne. She's a Burke from Robert Bouchard, but she was married to Leo Martin, Georgie and Al's brother. And there's her and her brother-in-law, Melvin Carter, and all this crowd there, the whole table, and it's like,
Yeah.
and you're watching this, and it's like, that's what's missing.
Yeah.
Like, it was the community behind the music.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
like, I get goosebumps here talking.
Will you create a moment at that, in that
It was
hour,
important.
hour or two, whatever?
Like,
Darn right
it
it
was
is.
important to them. The music was as important as the church, as important as the
It was almost a religion.
it
in
was its
itself.
own religion, it was a branch of their own religion, and it's like, that's
So
gone.
Oh,
about
yeah.
that religion, so I do have to ask an impertinent question.
okay.
So you guys have talked about all kinds of guys.
Mm.
Where were the girls in the music scene? Cornelia was
Linda Stone in St. Peter's, one of my many cousins, Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah?
With the Doryman in Halifax.
Cornelia, she did very well.
Yeah.
She won the Du Maurier Search for Stars,
Mm-hmm.
and she won, I don't know how many accolades that she's won over the years. And they toured in Germany, they went to Holland, they went all over the place, her and her husband Billy.
Mm-hmm.
So they did very, very well
They
too.
did, yeah.
That was one of the groups from back then
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, were there any
that's playing the dance scene
other
around here.
girls that we should think
Not a
about?
whole lot.
There weren't a lot, eh?
Remember up to
There was always the odd girl singer at a variety show, but
Yeah.
not anyone like you say, Billy and Cornelia. Like I said, Linda, but she don't
She
come.
celebrated.
You know, but it's like,
Yeah, it was a guy's world in a lot of ways, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there were some
yeah.
notable important exceptions, but it was a,
But you know
That
what?
changed,
Having
but-
said that, most of the radio personalities too were all male
Yeah,
singers.
were all
that's true, yeah.
You know, I mean, Connie Smith came up and
Yeah.
Loretta Lynn, Kitty Wells, but that was the beginning of the women's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and they built it pretty well too.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
more women came out after that too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at the beginning, like
But
you
they were a
said,
little later,
it was
yeah.
mostly guys.
Yeah.
Most of the guys, yeah.
I still think that there's the old lady from Samsonville, her son Danny used to play, Irene Sampson, and I think of the what was the show on Saturday night there from Maine?
Oh, Stacy's
Stacey's
Jamboree.
Jamboree.
Yeah.
The old lady that you see,
Jenny.
the old woman.
Wings of a dove.
Wings of a Dove. Well, every variety show that Irene Carter and her son was Danny, they called him Danny Boy, and it was like she would sing "On the Wings of a Snow White."
Never
And
failed.
she was, I don't know how old she lived to be.
She
but
was horrible.
Oh no, I'm talking about the one in Samsonville.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Irene.
Jenny.
Oh no, she was terrible.
Oh.
Well, most of the people on that show were
Yeah.
terrible.
He
Come
was a
on.
sneaker.
See these hands, by golly, they
Yeah.
don't gas.
Yeah.
That was Stacy himself, he was doing the DMC.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm sorry. you
Oh
went
no,
on.
but I'm just saying, like, it's like.
Buddy was a sneaker left and right. They showed a shore of a sneaker.
Yeah.
Written on top of the sneaker left and
Yeah.
right. You don't know which one is
Easy
that.
to forget.
It was so bad that people watched it because it was so bad.
Oh,
It got to be
yeah.
a hit. It got to be a hit
That's
show by
what
people.
yeah.
Well, we drive home from dances on Saturday night and we stopped at the Irving in Port Hastings to have a meal because that thing
Yeah.
was over to 3
Oh,
o'clock in
yeah.
the morning. And I think it was broadcast on radio too, wasn't
Yeah,
it, that
I
show?
think so.
Likely, yeah.
Yeah, and we used to listen to it.
It was
We
Channel
used to wait
7.
for Jenny
yeah.
to come and sing Wing of a Dove.
We used to watch it when I went to St.
Now, I
Mary's.
seen her one night, saw it 3 times.
We'd be partying all night long and
Read the
then we'd
words.
be coming down.
And they just stopped, boom.
Yeah.
The whole band would stop, and then she remembered him, and they started over again from the beginning. But why didn't you start from where you stopped, right?
And
was
they were
on
all
cable.
out of key, none of them
Oh,
were
yeah.
there were no
Half of them
musicians
weren't
there.
tuned.
It was a cable show that came on the main.
Yeah.
And the guy had a garage and he started this.
He sponsored the show. And then
Yeah.
But
he
it
eventually
sounds like it
became,
was-
he became the
Nick
host.
Stacy.
Nick Stacy.
Stacy's Jamboree.
They actually toured around. They went on tour. They would go
Oh, yeah.
People go.
It sounds like it was a hit, you guys.
It
were
was
so
a hit. Like I said, it was so bad.
It was so funny that everybody watched it.
So that everybody watched it.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Well, we should
Anyway.
probably wind up pretty soon, but,
Oh, no, let's keep going.
well, we can do that, we can do that. But, I mean, I just wonder if there's anything with the music scene that you particularly delighted in that we haven't really talked about.
My first recording session in Nashville was something that I'll always remember.
I'll bet.
I was amazed by the studio musicians.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you're used to playing everything by ear, you can't read music, and, I mean, it comes natural to you, it's okay, it's fairly easy, but it's time consuming when you want to learn songs. And when I first went down there to record the Audie Murphy album, Giselle and I, we sat in the studio, and the lead musician, usually the keyboard player,
Yeah.
Roger Morse was his name. He'd say, okay,
Music director, I guess.
sing. He'd say, sing what you're going to sing. Do your song. And everybody turned their instruments upside down and had their little charts, and I'd be singing. And okay, let's try it. It was like they played it 1,000 times.
Wow.
Just like that, and it was tight and together, and it just blew my mind. I mean, I knew it was happening, but I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And to watch these guys play was just amazing.
I gotta ask you something, the other side of Robert Bouchard, did the Strangers?
There was a
I read
whole-
something that the Strangers had backed you up at some point.
James Burton was on it, on
Okay.
Random Man,
Yeah,
that part. But there was a drummer there was from the Eddie Fisher show. That was an old show that you wouldn't remember,
No.
and neither would I actually.
Yeah.
But the guy who produced it, Scotty Turner, actually from the beginning of it, seeing as how we're talking about it, I'll tell you how it started. Scotty Turner, his original name was Turnbull, and his father was from the Sydney area.
Buddy's Bay, yeah.
Yeah, and Scotty came down and visited with Freeman Roach. And Freeman Roach told Scotty about me, because I had been to Sydney a couple, I was only young when I was going to Sydney, 13, 14 years old, singing on TV shows, TRS and things like that. Anyway, Scotty got from Freeman that I was a singer, and maybe you want to hear this guy. So we did there was Joe Way playing acoustic guitar,
Joy,
and he still called me on his birthday.
I remember.
Hey, Robert,
Yeah.
it's
Joy,
Joe, it's my
Joy's-
birthday today. I
yeah.
called for you to wish me happy birthday. He do that every year.
Some player, right?
Yeah.
His son is out.
And a good guy who
Yeah.
salted the earth.
Yeah.
And there was a piano player, I can't remember who the piano player was. It might have been Johnny O'Connor, but I'm not sure. Anyway, we recorded all the songs that I was gonna do. Then Scotty and I went out, we took a bunch of pictures. The picture on that album was taken in Little Lands off the rocks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And anyway, when we got back, I said to Scotty, I was all excited. And I said, you know, when is this gonna happen? When is this gonna come out? He said, well, it's gonna take about a year. And I, what? A year? Well, he said, I work for United Artists Records. They're all defunct now,
Yeah.
there's only 3 labels, I think.
Yeah.
And he said, first side we're gonna do the countryside, we're gonna do that in Nashville. Then he said, I'm gonna go to California with the rest of the master, and we're gonna do the Irish side in California. And I mean, I was trying to grasp all this, but when I got final album in my hands, I think it was a box of 50. It was a very limited edition. And I read on the back of it all the credits, and it was Eddie Fisher, the drummer from Eddie Fisher show, James Burton from Merle Haggard's Strangers. There was, I can't even think of it. I got the album home, and on the back of the jacket was all the musicians, and they were all top-notch musicians that were on that. So I mean, that was a big deal for me. What, you did all that for me?
So
Unbelievable.
you recorded part of it in Sydney.
Yeah.
What would have been there? You and
My
your
voice,
acoustic
acoustic guitar and piano.
and piano,
That's
and
it.
that was it. So then they had to add everything in. And
And you know, at that time, of course, my timing wasn't,
I was going to ask you with the top, because then they had to add the drums and everything to it. So
yeah.
like this day and age, they use click tracks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they can adjust everything.
So anyway, that was the basic tractor done there, and then they sent it to Nashville.
Yep, so they did it, and they had to do all the wows and flutters that I was
Yeah.
doing, and they had to follow it accordingly, and they did a hell of a job, all things considered.
I can see though that at your age, that must have been
Oh, it was the ultimate
mind-boggling.
rush, it was the ultimate rush.
A rush, but also mind-boggling,
Yeah.
just technically what.
Well, I waited from the time he left
Yeah,
till the time I got the album, it was a whole bloody year, and I was just, I couldn't wait, I just couldn't wait, you know? And then, people come to the door, because, I mean, we had spread it around then, oh, Robert Bouchard's gonna record his album, he's gonna get it pretty soon. And, I can't remember how short a time people came to the door, wanted to buy it.
Having a record out in them days is,
Yeah.
it's not like today, like, I mean, it was a big
It was
thing.
a big deal.
Or a
And
record,
around
you know,
here, local area.
That's what I mean.
You were a hero.
everybody wanted 7 copies for Christmas.
Yeah, I would've sent one to my sister in Quebec, and, you know, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But it was neat, it was a great time, you know.
Mm.
Well,
Linda Stone did the one in Halifax with the Doryman, with her in The Mermaid's Tale, called Going Home, I think,
Uh-huh,
with Linda, and
yeah.
I found your record the other day that you signed for Mom when you're overpaying your dues that time.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the record's like this,
Yeah.
in the basement. But the
Yeah.
liner, like, it's all water got on somebody. I took it out and I said, I'm gonna let this dry out for a while. And I'm gonna take it to Robert and get him to sign it for me.
Yeah.
But, that was like, I remember the first time after that album, like, you coming to, probably the only time I remember you coming to pay your dues. And, like, I remember sitting there saying, he's a star, you know? Like, we got this, like, you know.
Well, it means a lot, right, in
Well, it's a small community,
yeah,
right? Like, I
it's
mean,
huge.
And he was a nice guy, like, that's the thing, it
What
was.
do you mean was?
Well,
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, okay.
before this little lunch we
When
had.
they stop the camera, when they stop the camera, we'll talk about that.
That's another program.
Yeah. No, but it was like, it was just, I remember when I did my first cassette with Danny Garland.
Yeah, exciting, wasn't it?
And, you know, paid the money, and it's like, it didn't take a year, I mean,
Yeah,
I remember in his little studio in Truro, like, with the guy Frank Mingo, their own Mingo Music
Yeah, I
Center.
remember
Frank
that,
played, lent us all the guitars, and Frank played bass, and, you know.
So did you feel like you'd arrived in an important way
Well,
when you did that?
what I felt with it was, like, my friend Roger Stone, my cousin, Roger was big time in Halifax, and Roger's still one of
Yeah,
my
he's-
influences in music, nice guy. He played on what Weldon Boudreau came and sang on a couple songs. Weldon was friends with Roger's wife.
well, it's very good musician,
Life
very
is-
good singer too.
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Wife at the time was still,
Yes.
You do a good job.
and it was like, it sounded so good recording it.
Mm.
And then I remember putting that cassette on my cassette player going, it sounds like I'm singing.
Yeah.
Danny's like, well, I put a little bit of the vocal, the oral exciter on your voice, and I'm like, I think you put a little too much.
What do you remember, Kenny, as a very delightful moment?
Well, a couple, like, I'm kinda new at the game, you guys been around. Not that I'm younger, but,
No.
you know,
Where you
You
are.
don't need to disclose
Yeah.
anything, right?
but I had a chance to record, down in Sydney at, I did a CD with, Jamie Foles over at
Oh, yeah.
Sound Park Studios, some good, really good musicians.
Yeah.
Aaron Lewis and,
It's interesting
Oh,
stuff.
great,
you know.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. It was a dream of mine to go to a studio. And
Yeah, yeah,
happened to win a contest, and the contest was recording studio time. So I went in there, and like I say, the musicians, like, it was unreal. Like,
Hmm.
Aaron Lewis is just amazing talent.
He is very
out of
talented.
this
I'm doing a show with him Friday night
world. Is that right in Sydney?
in Lewisburg.
Oh, Lewisburg,
An
sorry.
old pub at Fortress, I think, we're going in there.
They play there regularly.
Him and Buddy McDonald,
Yeah.
and there's a lady too that's gonna be, so there'll be 4 of us on stage just acting the fool, like we're doing right now.
It's funny, like you were talking about that Nashville recording. I've been very lucky the last little while. I've done a couple of bits of recordings with Fred Lavery and his guys up in Vermont.
Tony,
And it's like, I did this one Ghost Stories, and there's like a song about Over This Way, Joseph David and his house, the haunted house and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I went in with all the stuff because I had all these other people singing as well as myself. And it was the first time I said to Fred, can we get, you know, your buddy there, Steve, from the Man That Eats, can we get him to play keyboards and accordion? And he said, we can get whoever you want here. And so the first day I was down from Halifax, and I went out there for the day, and it's like, Stephen came in at lunchtime. He still teaches school down in Sydney, in New Oxford, I think. And he came in, and Fred hands him this little piece of paper this big. And I said, "What's that?" He said, "That's a chord chart for 7 songs." It was a piece with just like 1, 2, 3, 1, like all this sort of stuff on it. And I said, "Cool, like why don't you put on one of the tracks and so I can hear him playing along?" He said, "Oh no, he's just gonna play what I've got on here." And I'm thinking like, well, how does that work? And honest to God, he sat down, and I don't think there was ever maybe one song was 2 takes. He did piano and accordion.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm just sitting there, and it's like, I'm listening to all the, like, Luann Bona sang one of the songs, and Cyril sang one of the songs, and it's like, he's just playing these tracks to their voices, and Fred's little piece of paper, and at the end, I think he was there 45 minutes, and he played on 7 songs.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
It was
Number
just,
system.
yeah, and it's like, and perfect,
Yeah, I got that whole
yeah.
booklet home on the number system.
Yeah.
And if I was stubborn enough,
Yeah.
I could learn it.
Yeah.
But I just can't be bothered with it. I mean, there's that many pages in it,
Wow.
and it describes how it all began and how it happens. And it's mind-boggling to watch those guys work. They can do something that they never heard in their entire life. They
Yeah.
can play it in perfect time, and they feel it.
They make magic.
They feel it.
Yeah, I got a CD in Calvert with, for Legion CD, and the, Jimmy Ames was the, tech, sound tech. Excuse me, and there was 9 of us on the CD.
Wow.
Everybody did 2 songs each. And I was working for Narwhal Plumbing and Heating at the time. And I remember they still talk about it today. Like Robert was saying, when it comes natural, it just flows out of you. And the other guys that were on there were in the studio off and on for about 6 hours, doing this, trying to get it, whatever. I went home for dinner. I had an hour off for dinner. I went home, I had my dinner first. 12:30, I hit the studio, and I told Jimmy, I said, I got half an hour, I gotta get to work. Let's get her done. He said, what do you want to sing? I said, I'll do a couple more laggards. So I did Farmer's Daughter and The Fight Inside of Me. 5 minutes flat, boom. He said, that's a cut.
Wow.
Walked away. He said, I've never seen anybody do anything like that before.
You know the songs well.
Yeah, I
Yeah, he
did.
had played them a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like doing it the way I've always done it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I said, is that okay? Yeah. I said, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Off the line, that was it.
Yeah, you mentioned, one guy we forgot to mention there, Cyril McPhee.
Cyril, yeah.
Ah, big talent there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
big talent,
for sure.
nice guy. Every time we meet each other, we always insult each other,
Yeah.
happily.
What
And
do we
we,
dance about?
It said
well, it's
that,
not necessarily
He's a
insult.
Montreal fan.
We joke, yeah,
Oh,
we
okay,
joke
okay,
a
yeah.
lot, you know.
yeah, it's too bad he's not playing, I guess.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, really exceptional talent, and nicest guy,
Smile
too.
on his face.
Just love him, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the 4 of you have talked a lot about how much musicians appreciate their audiences. But I mean, I know audiences have appreciated you guys a lot, especially in the local area. And I'm really glad that you came and had lunch together with me today. And,
So are we.
Thank you for having us,
and,
it was
and,
amazing.
and yeah, I learned a lot. I feel really privileged to have been part of this.
Well,
So,
thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks all you guys
Yeah,
for
Yeah.
being here.
Very nice.
It's been a slice.
Derek?